This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're gonna acknowledge me.
Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to WWE Retro on the WWE Podcast on this Friday, April 29th, or actually 28th. Got ahead of myself there, as we are creeping towards Backlash, but more importantly, it feels like we are now looking past Backlash and towards Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia, which will be the 1,000-day celebration of Roman Reigns as the world champion. And, you know, I've never been a fan of this. I'm sure if you've listened to me and Matt long enough, you know that we're not really fans of how a lot of times WWE will do things to bypass the one pay-per-view to just look on to the next. It feels that's what's happening here, and Backlash truly is a B-level pay-per-view. The best match of the night, the presumed main event will be a non-title match between Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes. And then you have the two women's championships being defended. You have the U.S. title being defended. The six-man tag match between the Bloodline, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Matt Riddle. So I guess it will be a good pay-per-view. It just is a bit unfortunate that we are looking past this pay-per-view, or at least I am. And one of the reasons why we are looking past this pay-per-view is simple: the new World Heavyweight Championship. Now, presumably, and I believe I'm a bit behind on the current product, I'll be honest with you guys. I'm about one or two shows behind, so my next show that I have to watch is SmackDown from a week ago. But from everything I understand is that the World Heavyweight title will be handed out at the Night of Champions pay-per-view, which is really cool in a lot of ways. I think that it's pretty awesome because, as someone who grew up in the Ruthless Aggression era, the World Heavyweight title was a prominent figure and a prominent championship for much of those years. And you can make the case that there was a period where the World Heavyweight title felt more significant than the WWE Championship, specifically when it was over on Monday Night Raw, when it main evented WrestleMania 20, when it main evented WrestleMania 21, with Triple H walking in as champion both times and walking out not as champion both times. You know, once Benoit wins it, the other time Batista wins it. They're bringing this back, and I hope that they will continue the lineage of the former World Heavyweight title, its predecessor that was retired almost 10 years ago. How crazy is that they unified the world title and the WWE Championship almost 10 years ago in a ladder match between Randy Orton and John Cena. And now presumably they're going to unify the WWE and Universal Championships into one belt. And just like that, we are going to have another world title evaporate into thin air in the Universal. And I think that's something that is very interesting about all this because, you know, Matt and I spoke about it. I've seen people speak about it online, is that the presumed favorite to win the first ever World Heavyweight Championship, or brought back as the new world title, is Cody Rhodes. And in a lot of ways, he deserves it. You know, everyone knows I'm not a Cody Rhodes fan, but I could be objective. And honestly, I think that he would be a perfect guy to carry that world championship. But the problem you get into here when you keep introducing new world titles is that it dilutes the meaning of them. And is this the title that his dad never won? Or are we being more specific about, is it Dusty Rhodes? Or, I mean, is it the WWE title, the title that Dusty Rhodes never won? And now the fact that the Universal title is going to be merged with the WWE, and I know they always start by saying the undisputed WWE Universal Champion, but after a while, it will always become just the WWE Champion again. It always has, it always will. We saw it when it merged with the WCW title and when we saw it merge with the World Heavyweight Championship 10 years ago. They'll carry the dual name for a bit of time, and then it will always go back to just being known as the WWE Championship. So now when the Universal title is inevitably and presumably imminently retired, are the people who won the Universal Championship going to be considered as former world champions? You know, is Kevin Owens still going to be considered as a one-time world champion? Is Finn Balor going to be considered as a one-time world champion? You know, Brock Lesnar, I believe his longest title reign was as a Universal Champion. Is he going to be able to hold on to that? You know, Roman Reigns started this 1,000-day run as the Universal Champion. Braun Strowman is another guy who has only one world title run under his belt, and it was as the Universal Champion. Both times Goldberg won it, he was the Universal Champion. So, I mean, I know WWE, I know they're going to keep the Universal title even when it is officially retired under the umbrella of a world champion. I just find it interesting that now this title was, you know, created out of thin air in 2016, and 7 years later, it's going to be pretty much retired and just will ride off into the sunset. But I mean, all in all, I'm happy that Triple H is bringing back the World Heavyweight title. Still undecided if I like the look, but I do think that it's going to be a better change of pace. And we just spoke about briefly about who could be the next or the first ever world champion. Or I don't know, is it the next or the first? Because is this a new world title, or are they just bringing it back? So the next, the first, whatever you want to call it, could be Cody Rhodes. But another candidate, and arguably the best candidate beyond Cody Rhodes, is Seth Rollins, a guy who has not held the world title, coincidentally, the Universal, in almost 4 years. It's been since October of 2014 since Seth Rollins has held a world championship, when he lost the Universal title to Bray Wyatt, coincidentally, in Saudi Arabia. So, could he be the next guy? Which brings us back to his first ever run as a world champion, back when he won the title at WrestleMania 31, when he interjected himself in the World Heavyweight Championship match between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar.
This is brilliant! Seth Rollins, this is brilliant! Mr. Money in the Bank! What the hell? Are you kidding me? I didn't do this! I have no idea! Seth Rollins, Mr. Money in the Bank!
Ladies and gentlemen, Seth Rollins is cashing in his money in the bank. Therefore, this will now be a triple threat match.
Triple threat match? What? What the hell? Rollins knocks Reigns out of the ring. Seth Rollins now turning his attention to Lesnar. Seth Rollins is one curb stop away from being the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Rollins going to the curb stop. Here he is. There he is. The future is now. Seth Rollins. Check it out, Reigns. Seth is going to finish him. Taking no chances here at all. But we got a curb stop. Lesnar picked him out of the air. Reigns with a spear. A wicked spear. Curb stop Reigns. Cover by Rollins. Rollins with the title. Rollins with the title. Wait a minute. Seth Rollins with the title. Are you kidding me?
And the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion, Seth
First time in
Rollins.
WrestleMania history, someone's casting by the blade and walking out. Seth Rollins, World Heavyweight Champion. Seth Rollins. He stole one. Rollins with the heist of the century. Brilliant. Brilliant. Seth Rollins is the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. I cannot believe my eyes.
So, if you guys haven't figured it out, today we are talking about Seth Rollins' first run as a WWE World Champion. And in my mind, WrestleMania 31 was the best WrestleMania of the last 2 decades, probably. Maybe 15 years. I think 15 years is a safer, blanket term. But, I mean, and that's not to say that there hasn't been good ones. This year was really good. WrestleMania 38 was really good. But WrestleMania 31's main event by Seth Rollins cashing in and in a lot of ways saving the main event. A main event that was heavily rejected, although I do think it over-delivered in a lot of ways, was something that was very memorable. And Seth Rollins was a guy who had clearly been on the ascent for almost a full calendar year, breaks away from the Shield, becomes the Money in the Bank briefcase holder, and he goes into WrestleMania in a very heated program with Randy Orton, and they're the second match on the card, and Randy Orton scores that victory. And I remember when Seth Rollins was entering the ring and entering the stadium, when he got to the ring, he got up on the second turnbuckle and he lifted up his briefcase, and I was just like, yeah, he's cashing in tonight. And evidently it seemed like I didn't really know what was up because he only found out, I think, a bit before this match even went underway. I think it really was a last-minute decision by WWE. And I do think it was probably the best decision that they could have made. This was an absolutely fantastic booking decision on the part of WWE. So what happens here is that he continues his program with Randy Orton. They face off against each other at Extreme Rules, the following pay-per-view. And he ultimately retains his title. Beyond that, he goes to Payback, and he has a fatal four-way match against Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, and Dean Ambrose for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. He once again retains that. And one of the underlying storylines here is that he was having tensions with Kane, that Kane was showing him tough love. If he had lost the fatal four-way match at Payback, Kane would have lost his title as Director of Operations. It ultimately ended up along the way of Kane coming back with the mask, and when Seth Rollins tried to break his ankle with a stomp to the ankle when it was in between the chair. And that was another cool wrinkle to kind of see Kane's transformation back into Demon Kane after he had been the corporate stooge for what felt like at this point like a year and a half. It really felt like a year and a half that Kane had been the Director of Operations and kind of a lackey in a lot of ways for the Authority. A very good version of Kane. It really showed Kane's depth and capabilities as a wrestler and as a performer. So even though it probably wasn't mine or most people's favorite version of Kane, it really showed how good of good of an asset Kane was, and he kind of was Mr. Everything for WWE in a lot of ways. So a few months go by, and the Authority, obviously very proud of their chosen one, but it gets to a point where the Authority felt that Seth Rollins had to be ready for the final and next task.
If you want to know what you have with a lump of coal, you stick it under immense pressure. That pressure does one of two things. The pressure either causes it to crumble and turn to dust and render it useless, or that pressure turns it into the diamond that you always hoped it could be. Seth, the question now is, do you crumble or do you become the diamond that we have invested in? Because Seth, the pressure is on. That is a fighting machine. I cannot believe what I'm seeing. With and defend his championship. He used to stare at a hole in Rollins. The girls put pressure. That is an understatement. Brock Lesnar is back and he has his sights set on the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. That is a perfect fighting machine.
So Brock returns for the first time since being suspended post WrestleMania 31 when he went absolutely nuts, destroyed the announce booth, F5 Michael Cole, F5 the cameraman, and Stephanie Man suspended him. Now he's back a few short months later to try and regain the championship that he had lost but was never pinned for at WrestleMania 31. He loses, Brock Lesnar that is, at the hands of Seth Rollins, but with the help of The Undertaker. The Undertaker returns and him and Brock Lesnar kick up an old rivalry 15 months after Brock had broken the streak, and it allows Seth Rollins to keep the title. This leads to SummerSlam in a championship versus championship match. Seth Rollins versus John Cena. John Cena, the then United States champion, against Seth Rollins, the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. And this seemed like a pretty big deal. They do not do title versus title matches often, especially when it's mid-card versus like a world championship. And, you know, obviously the most important or the most prominent one in history is probably the Ultimate Warrior versus Hogan at WrestleMania 6, where both the IC and the WWE Championship were on the line. But it really is a cool concept. It's something that you would figure that they would go back to the well with more, although I do understand that they like to probably keep those two tiers of competitors apart. But when you have a young up-and-comer like Seth Rollins as the world champion, and you have a legacy star and one of the greatest of all times as the U.S. champion, you know, really holding down that mid-card scene, it made sense why they ultimately decided to go this route. It was just more the outcome that was shocking above all else.
pedigree on the chair. A pedigree on the chair. Rollins is going to win the U.S. title. You gotta be kidding me. John Stewart do that like this. Why would he do that? Rollins has made history thanks to John Stewart.
Your United States and WWE World Heavyweight Champion, Seth Rollins.
The hell are we gonna see? The host of SummerSlam just helped Seth Rollins win.
Yeah, so you heard that right. Jon Stewart is the guy who costed John Cena the match and the ability to say that he was the only WWE and US champion simultaneously. And look, I mean, I get it. Jon Stewart, host, popular, but my God, really? They couldn't think of a better way to cap off one of the more historic matches in WWE. And I'm not saying that in retrospect that it was a historic match, but I mean, like, in theory, it should have been billed and thought of as a historic match, right? Am I off with that? Like, you're crowning the first ever US and WWE World Champion. And you know what? Like, I thought maybe John Cena would get it, given where he was at in his career. You know, you were about... You basically had another year and a half left of John Cena as a full-time competitor in mid-2015. So I thought, hey, maybe they'll give him like this really cool title or the ability to say this and that. But they gave it to Rollins, who was an up-and-comer, and I think that was the right decision. I won't argue with that decision. But the fact that they made John Cena get costed this opportunity by Jon Stewart, and then the reasoning was that he didn't want John Cena to tie Ric Flair's record as world champion. It was stupid. The reasoning was stupid. It really like put a dark cloud over an otherwise very good match and an otherwise very well thought out main event. I think, you know, this was a cool concept to really kind of put Seth Rollins or separate Seth Rollins away from the rest. And I think that was something that we really have to consider here, is that Seth Rollins' run as champion, as world champion, really is separated from the rest because he was also the US champion for a point in time. And this led to a celebration the next night by the Authority for Seth Rollins' historic accomplishment. And it was all to be culminated with the unveiling of a Seth Rollins statue with both belts. But when it was time to unveil the statue, it ended up being just all but the opposite of what Rollins was expecting.
Truth. But to be the man, you know where this is going. You've got to beat the man. And that is exactly what I did last night, baby. So when we unveil this statue, as of that moment, just like you said, Trips, I am no longer the future of WWE. I am the man. And after I go on to main event WrestleMania, after WrestleMania, after WrestleMania, this statue will stand when I am long retired. Hell, when I am dead and gone, this statue will live forever in recognition of my legacy. Bruno Sammartino, the ultimate warrior. Andre the Giant. And now, Seth Rollins. It's time, baby. I can't wait anymore. I can't wait anymore. Brooklyn, are you ready? No. This one's for you. I said, Brooklyn, are you ready? baby, because the champ is here!
What the hell? Oh my God, it's Sting!
Oh my gosh.
It's the Icon! And Sting with a right hand to Rollins. Here comes Sting, the vigilante.
The franchise at WCW. Talk about true immortal.
Sting ruining Seth Rollins' night. And here comes the Stinger Splash. And there goes Rollins. Sting is stuck into the authority again.
I can't believe this.
What a moment on the Stone Monday Night Raw. Sting returns with a vengeance and gets the best of the authority again.
So Sting returns, and with his sights set on the WWE World Championship, and the following pay-per-view was Night of Champions, which would result in Rollins defending his his WWE Championship against Sting, and his US title against John Cena in a rematch. He would retain the WWE Championship against Sting, in the process severely injuring Sting, and thought to have maybe ended his career with a botched buckle bomb, and losing the US title to John Cena. He would then, at the very next pay-per-view, successfully defend the WWE World title against Kane in a Hell in a Cell match. Kane would lose his job as Director of Operations. And then just less than a short month later, I believe, at a house show, Seth Rollins would injure himself. I believe it was his knee at the time, and have to relinquish the World Heavyweight Championship, or WWE Championship. It held both names at that time, which in turn would result in Roman Reigns winning it at the Survivor Series 2015. All in all, Seth Rollins' run as WWE Champion in 2015 was historic. I think that, in an era where there was no brand split, he really carried both shows well. And I think that it's all the more interesting because there's two things that really stand out about that run to me. One, he never lost that belt. He had to relinquish it due to injury. So we really never know where that title reign was going, where it was going to culminate, how it was going to end. And he was a double champion, which not a lot of current wrestlers can say. Obviously, Roman Reigns could say that, as he's a double world champion, and now a unified champion. But in terms of holding a mid-card title, that's very rare. That's rarefied air that Seth Rollins was in, and I don't think it's talked about enough just how much they invested into his 2015 run as WWE Champion. And I think that we all are owed another run of Seth Rollins as World Heavyweight Champion. Because yes, we got his run as Universal Champion, for sure. And it was a decent run, although his babyface character wore very stale after a couple months, in my opinion. But it was nowhere close to how successful and how good his WWE Championship run was. And I think that this is maybe a golden opportunity to finally get a world title back on Seth Rollins. And maybe have him carry his own brand. But at the same time, do you want him on the same brand as Roman Reigns to potentially be one of the guys to end Roman Reigns' run as WWE Universal Champion? Anyway, guys, that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed Seth Rollins' run as WWE Champion. As always, you can get me on Twitter at ADamarco25. You can get Matt on Twitter at wrestling_audio, or you can email him each and every week for the WWE Podcast Mailbag. Anyway, guys, have a great weekend. I will be talking to you next week.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.